Welcome to the Time Chronicles. I'm Karen Ellington.
I'm Starfire Tor. Join us as we journey beyond the outer limits of your perception.
Beyond the illusion of mainstream reality and beyond the deception and disinformation that passes for truth.
So join us as we reveal the hidden and forbidden secrets of the world and the multiverse.
It's about time. Hello, travelers and seekers of truth. Welcome to episode 2 of the Time Chronicles podcast with Starfire Tor and me, Karen Ellington. Today we shall delve into the fascinating topic of psychic dreams and premonitions. I myself have experienced premonitions in dream time and in meditation, and I know Starfire has lots of juicy stories lined up for you. Now, for those of you who don't know, Starfire Tor is not only a scientist and researcher, but she's also a world-renowned psychic and writer who has a near 100% precognition success rate. She discovered the core matrix, time shifts, coexisting timelines, and if you listen to podcast 1, we go into those topics more deeply, and the unified field theory of psi. The science behind everything psychic and paranormal, including precognition, prophecy, and premonitions. So before we get started and I unleash Starfire with her amazing stories to fascinate you with, let's go through a few of the terms that you're going to hear in tonight's show, just to make sure we are all on the same page. So prophecy. A definitive declaration based on different types of psychic knowing that accurately foretells of a future historical event. A premonition, slightly different. It's a forewarning or anticipation without physical cues or exact specifics, but something is going to happen and it does. Precognition is the ability to psychically and accurately see specific events that will happen in the future, are happening in the now, or have happened in the past. Now, psychic dreaming, one of my favorites, the psychic method of receiving accurate past, present, or future information through the dream state. And you might hear a few related terms such as sixth sense, second sight, foresight, clairvoyance, extrasensory perception, also known as ESP, foreknowledge, psi data downloads, and the knowing. These may come up in tonight's podcast. So now we have all of that out of the way and we're all on the same page. Starfire, could you please talk about some of your precognition hits that you've had over the years and that you have all of these precognitive hits well documented on your own website, haven't you?
I do, yes.
Mm-hmm.
First of all, I just want to say that my ability to see the future or what's happening now or even the past is natural. It's just the way I was born. So for me, I consider it just a gift of nature, a gift of God or a gift of the divine. But it's not something that I work at. It's just something that I experience every day, many times a day. But occasionally, I have a precognition of something that I think if I shared it with the public, maybe I could save lives. That's what drives me to share my precognitions, whether it's from a dream state or it just comes to me. In fact, most of my precogs happen when I'm wide awake and doing other tasks. They just come to me. I'm just impressed with the information. Of course, I can't be cataloging all these to the public. It would be thousands by now, but I put out the ones that I feel are the most important. For example, in 2015, when I saw Donald Trump coming down the elevator with his wife at Trump Tower, I had a precognition that he was going to be the 45th president of the United States. I knew that when there were a lot of people vying for the same candidacy.
Mm-hmm.
So it wasn't just like it was Trump and Clinton, two people where it's a 50-50 chance, a 50-50 choice. I knew it when he was barely a dot on the radar. He was being ridiculed, and his poll points were very, very, very low.
Nothing changed there then, because they still tried to put him low in the polls.
Right. And so from 2015, right up and through the day that he was elected on November the 8th, 2016.
Sorry, could I just interject? So you're saying this was 2015. It's not even the same year as the election, which happened then the November all the way after. So that would be like a year later.
He announced his intentions in 2015.
Mm-hmm.
And this is all documented either on my website and or on Facebook or on Twitter or wherever. But I've done a lot of reports on this on Facebook, and then it's been put onto my website. Okay, so it wasn't just that I knew he was going to win. I knew why he was going to win. And so through the time that I made my first precog announcement, which was, I should tell you, not well received. Not well received at all. In fact, I don't like politics. Even though I'm American, I do not belong to any political party. I do not support any political party. And in particular, I don't like politicians. Mm-hmm. And there's good reason for that.
Me too. I'm in that same vibe as you.
Yeah. So over the years, I just basically almost never talked about anything political, because I just didn't want to go there. But the information that I had picked up about why Trump was going to win was a life and death matter. Mm-hmm. It had to do with something called the time looping, planet ending nuclear holocaust that we keep repeating through our history. And I knew that this man was the candidate who was going to put an end to that. While the other candidate, Clinton, was by her behavior, by her actions, by her policies, was going to invite it in. I went to great lengths through many posts and reports to involve the public into helping me to really find out which of these candidates was the one that was going to be the lifesaver. Because that's all I cared about. Mm-hmm. I wasn't interested in policies. I wasn't interested in their character. I wasn't interested in their crimes, if they had any, which we now know that Clinton has quite a few. But at the time, there was a lot of political skullduggery going on and a lot of propaganda going on both sides.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, both sides.
So it was kind of impossible for the public to know, but I was getting a pretty good feel for it. And I knew also that the Trump that came down the escalator in 2015 was not going to be the same man that won the presidency. I knew that if he was the one that through timelines, the editing of timelines by the core matrix, he would be altered. The core matrix would be looking with both Clinton and Trump, not just one, but with Clinton and Trump, looking for the best of them, the best versions of them in various coexisting timelines to save the planet. That's what it was all about, not anything else. The core matrix doesn't care about who leads what country, who has what policy, who does what crime, who does this, who does that. It's nonsense. Doesn't care. This is all about the prime directive, which is saving the planet, which is saving us. So the core matrix goes into a series of edits, and it turns out that Clinton had no better version.
That's why I was a bit laughing to myself, actually, as you said the best version of Clinton. Well, I was thinking, is that it?
That's what the core matrix was looking for, to be equally representative, since these turned out to be the two candidates. So it turns out that Clinton had no better version. Trump had many, 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 many better versions of himself. And each time we had these timeline edits, a better version of Trump would land in our dominant coexisting timeline. About a week before the election in 2016, I knew that President Trump was now in our dominant timeline. And even though the polls still said there's no way this guy's going to win, even though the polls and the propaganda media were saying it's a shoo-in for Clinton, I kept telling everybody, no, it's not. He's going to win. The morning of the election, it still seemed like he was going to lose. And I had to come out again and say, stay tuned. He's going to win the election, because everything that I told you is what is actually happening, and what you are being presented with by the media, and including all these polls, is false, because the American public is going to choose him, because, as it turns out, despite his personality, he is going to stop the time-looping, planet-ending nuclear problem that is thousands and thousands of years old. And that is exactly what happened. So, a lot of people, my fans, they didn't like it.
No, people who follow you, they tend to get a bit disgruntled when you start touching on politics, because it's something very personal, and often people are very invested in one political party or another. Yep. So you're always going to upset 50, 40%, 30% of the people if you start taking a side.
Well, that's why I took great pains in many, many reports to explain what was really at stake. And once you understand what's really at stake, and then I began to explain the brainwashing aspect of it by the Democratic Party and by their propaganda allies in the media, I made my case. So actually, in the end, although I did lose a few fans, I could count them, 12. 12 out of thousands. I was glad at that. And that's all I want to say about that. I mean, it's we have the election coming up. We're doing this show prior to the 2020 election. I want to mention that. And so we'll probably tackle 2020 in another show. Do you think?
So you don't want to give a precog prediction on who wins the 2020 election right now?
Trump wins.
There you have it. I think Trump wins. Same.
And the biggest problem, thing that's driving me absolutely frantic, is that there's a lot of rigging and dishonest stuff going on the part of the Dems, the elite, what I call puppet masters, who control them to rig the election. And yes, folks, the mail-in ballots are a major source of corruption and rigging, and this needs to be ended legally. Has to be legal. So the Dems are going to, through some very false...
George Soros.
Yes, correct. So, but again, this is about the time-looping, planet-ending nuclear holocaust that President Trump is still the guy who keeps us safe. And the Dems are going to use everything in their coffer, lies, propaganda, and using Trump's own, well, let's face it, he does a lot of things personality-wise that are unpleasant and foot in mouth and not quite getting always facts straight, but his heart is in it. He loves the United States. He loves the world, and he's not going to do anything intentionally to hurt the United States and, by extension, the world. He's not about creating wars, but if the Democrats win, if socialism, anarchism, Marxism, communism takes over the United States, by extension, the rest of the democratic world falls. And those countries which have never in a long time, if ever, experienced freedom, they're never going to see it.
Mm-mm.
Hope will be gone. So it's very important that Trump win for the sake of the world.
And if he was to lose, would it also trigger that time looping event again?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
If Trump loses, you can absolutely expect that time looping event to roar back with a vengeance. And it's going to be horrible.
But that's not going to happen.
No. I mean, I've looked at a number of coexisting timelines, which is what I did in 2016 as well, to see how many of these coexisting timelines has Trump won and how many coexisting timelines has Biden, Kamala Harris won.
Mm-hmm.
And I saw only two timelines, two coexisting timelines in which the Biden-Harris ticket won. And those two timelines were only because their ability to rig the election actually worked. And every single other coexisting timeline, Trump won, but oh my God, the Democrats and their puppet master have already planned a whole series of interferences, controversies, false claims that are going to, again, try to mess up the administration of all of, one other thing I want to say before we get off of this topic is in 2016, on the day that he won, in my announcement that he won, I actually wrote, and it's on my website and it's on Facebook, a prediction, precognition of what he was going to achieve in his term of office. Karen, every single one of my specific predictions has come to pass. All of them. And I don't think anybody believed me, honestly. I wrote it there because I knew it to be so.
We're definitely going to have to do another show on this because I have so many questions on the political spectrum, but we're not going to go there right now. But we would definitely have to do another show on even what comes after Trump. Because
right. I didn't even want to go this far.
So anyway, let's keep that for another show. And
right. Okay. Moving on
to some of your other precognition hits.
Right. I'm just going to go through some of them. The terrorist attacks of 9/11. All of my precogs that we're talking about here are a matter of public record. On September the 10th, 2001, I published a very disturbing precognition that I had. Anyone can read it. It's on my website. It's very long. And it outlines, I was very concerned about planes having access to New York and the Twin Towers. I actually asked in what I wrote, are planes allowed to fly over New York? I said, I'm very concerned. I saw a lot. I saw the destruction. I saw what happened to the market, financial market. I saw the turn of events. I saw that it was coming out of the Middle East. In fact, I was so anxiety-ridden about what I saw that on that day, the 10th of September, 2001, I sold all of my financial holdings, all of my stocks, my bonds, everything that I had, and turned out saving my finances by doing that. My broker went crazy. He tried to talk me out of it, but I couldn't be talked out of it. Now, when I published about 9/11, I didn't know that it was going to happen in less than 24 hours. I really hoped that I had time because I had a research list at the time called Interdimension. And I had formed something called literally the Dream Team. And since I always had all these precogs and I was sharing them, and the whole thing, as I said, was about saving lives, other people on my list were also very good at having dreams or a premonition of things that were happening. So I thought, if one person has a little bit of a real precog, another person has another bit, because mostly none of us, including myself, ever get the whole story. We get fragments. So if this person has a piece of the fragment and that person has a piece of the puzzle and this other person does, maybe we can put it together, form a more holistic view of the danger, and we can stop it, mitigate it, or prevent the loss of life. This was the whole purpose of the dream team. So the reason why I put this information about these attacks on the Twin Towers and the military, I said there's attack on the military, and of course the Pentagon was hit. I never had the chance. The list never had the chance to go a step further because it happened in less than 24 hours after I made it public.
What do you think the point of that premonition for you is? Like, if you're having it so close to the event, what are you supposed to do with that other than sell your stocks and shares? Just seeing doom and gloom, and if there's nothing you can do to prevent it, why do you think you might be getting those visions of those things?
Well, that's a really good question. But first of all, I asked the same question. Why am I getting this information and not that information or something else? It's a puzzlement. But I do know, because I did discover the unified field theory of psi, I do know the mechanism. Now, just in brief, we have all of these coexisting timelines that are, they exist in the same space and are separated only by their individual frequencies. And they are streamed from the core matrix, which is like a cosmic brain, or in an analogy, the hard drive of a computer. And it has a prime directive to keep us safe, to keep us alive, not just our planet, but the entire cosmos. And so it's in constant editing mode to try to improve us. We're always going to be in that mode because we were rescued from a black hole, huge, mega complex black hole, swallowing our original cosmos, our original universe. Remnants of us were saved in this ergosphere that rotates around that black hole, still exists. And the core matrix, which is a spark of life, I call it soul, spark of life, was formed within this ergosphere from the original spark of life that created the other universe that we came from. So the core matrix began to develop from the remnants a plan to recreate us, to resurrect us, and it did, but only had remnants. Karen, it only had remnants. So we're not complete. We're never going to be complete. We don't have our memory. We don't know who we are, don't know where we came from. But because our brain is the interface to the core matrix, we actually have access to all of these coexisting timelines.
So do you think that you're getting the premonition when you're just in a certain relaxed state and it'll pop in? Do you think that's what triggers it?
I don't have to be relaxed. I can be in any state whatsoever. But in fact, something creating anxiety will actually trigger what I call side data downloads, information that'll help me survive something personally. So our dreams, not just me, everybody, their brain interfaces with the core matrix.
Yes.
So we have access to these coexisting timelines and other information. So when we're getting future information, whether a premonition, a precog, a prophecy, legit ones, by the way, not the fake ones, we're actually not seeing the future. We're seeing something that either has happened or is happening in a coexisting timeline. We're accessing streaming data. That's how it happens. But why, to answer your question, why we're picking up this piece of information and not that piece of information, I don't know. Do you think
maybe it's just because it's energetically charged and a powerfully energetically charged moment in time and you're catching the ripples of it?
I think you've got something there, because one of the things that happened after I published my precog on 9/11, I heard from hundreds of people you don't know, they're not public people, but they had pieces of a precog or a premonition that they realized was what happened on 9/11. For example,
yes,
there was a woman who was driving on a road in Washington, D.C. Because of her job, she passes by the Pentagon every day. And on this one day, shortly before the attacks, she was going up the road, and instead of seeing the Pentagon as usual, she had a vision of the Pentagon on fire. She didn't know what to make of it. She didn't even know if what she was seeing was real. For a moment, she thought that the Pentagon was on fire. She was going to call 911, literally 911, to call the fire department that the Pentagon was on fire. But when she rounded a corner on that road, she realized the Pentagon wasn't on fire at all. Later, when 9/11 happened, when the Pentagon was attacked, she realized she had a premonition. And I got stories like this. Some of them were corroborated by friends or family. I went to great lengths to find out that I was not the only person, which I knew couldn't be possible. I was not the only person who had information about 9/11. I'm just the only person that I know that had such an extensive precognition from both a dream state and a waking state of what happened there. So this was an event that was critical. Now, I do know, Karen, that there were timeline edits that are wrapped around what happened on 9/11. So that's going to have something to do with it. What most people don't know, and that I'm revealing in this type of a show for the first time, is that there was a hurricane parked off of New York at the time of 9/11. I know this. In fact, I still have the data, the maps from NOAA and all that sort of stuff. There was and that was supposed to hit New York on 9/11, but the hurricane never hit New York. Had it hit New York, no plane would have been flying around New York at that time. They would have all been grounded. You understand that?
Right. No, I didn't know that as a UK resident.
No.
I didn't know that.
No. But as part of my research, I think, as you know, I follow various natural disasters, natural pieces of energy, and hurricanes, earthquakes, tsunamis, volcanoes, all of them. So from my being able to follow a hurricane, that's just natural. It's like, okay, there's a hurricane. Okay, I'm tracking it. I'm tracking geomagnetic storms. I'm tracking all sorts of things. After 9/11 hit, there's no mention of this hurricane ever again, even though it still exists in the record books. This is a puzzlement. I know that it's connected to timeline edits. I know that whatever happened on 9/11 was even worse than our memory holds.
Right.
But it's that hurricane, Karen. It's that hurricane.
Because those are telltale signs, aren't they, of the core matrix? For those who haven't seen the other show or listened to the other show, that's a telltale marker. You call those markers?
Yeah, a time shift marker.
Yeah,
correct. Right.
Marker.
So there's still a lot to be discovered about that event. Why that event that I don't know the answers to. Then another thing was the crash of TWA Flight 800. All I can say is I had a dream about it. I saw it. I saw it in the air. I saw it falling. I saw it hit the water. So there was a lot of conspiracy material about that, but I'm pretty confident what I saw.
And where did that one fall? The TWA one? Sorry, can you just refresh?
Off of New York.
Off of New York.
Off of New York.
Right. Yeah.
Right. Some people thought that maybe it was hit by a rocket fired from the ground. I can just tell you that what I saw was the plane flying. I saw some other flying vehicle above it. I saw a beam of heated energy hit the plane, and I saw the plane explode.
Oh.
So I can't tell you what that vehicle was or what that beam of energy was. I saw what the vehicles looked like, and I have on my website photos of what it looked like.
Right.
So I can't tell you whether a rocket shot up at it. I can tell you that what I saw was something beaming down on top of it.
Okay.
That's all I can say. I have no other information.
What year was that, for those who don't know? Because I actually don't really remember this one very well.
Oh, gosh. You know what? I don't have it off the top of my head. It's on my website. I'm sorry.
Okay. All right then.
I just don't have it. And then another one was the Oklahoma City bombing of the Murrah building.
That one I had remember. That one. That was with Bill Clinton was in power, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had very specific precog. I dreamed it. I dreamed it so specifically, even the streets, names around it. I dreamed it.
Wow.
I'd never been to Oklahoma City.
Mm-mm.
Why would I dream that?
Mm-hmm.
Not only did I dream that, but I also dreamed the car that the bomber was in.
Mm.
I mean, why? Why? I don't know.
Why?
I don't know. I don't know. I tell you, sometimes I have precogs about things that end up I'm about to see in a movie or on TV. I mean, seriously, it's like I watch a lot of TV in other coexisting timelines. So, so I have to wonder if this is now try to keep up with this one, because this is just like I'm wondering about this, like the Murrah city bombing or any of the other disasters I precog on. Was I watching the news about them in a coexisting timeline and I remember them through a news broadcast? I don't know, but my brain goes in this direction though. Something else that I absolutely almost action by action, I saw the destruction of the SST Concorde. I saw it moment by moment. And that's just one. Why? I don't know. The Space Shuttle Columbia. Why? I don't know. That one, I had it in a dream. I saw like what looked like broken up meteor falling, going over my head, going like across part of the United States. I did not know what it was. It turned out to be, it happened within minutes of my publishing my dream. It turned out to be the Space Shuttle Columbia. And then when I saw video and still shots of it, and you'll see it here in the podcast, that photo, I dreamed it. Why? I don't know.
Wow,
But
it actually looks very beautiful, the picture that you've chosen.
It was
like a shooting star.
That's what I saw. Like a meteor breaking up in the atmosphere. That's what I saw in the dream, except I knew it was something deadly. I knew I knew that it involved the space shuttle. And it actually came to pass minutes after I published it. So I described the photo that you're seeing before the event ever happened, minutes before the event happened, or within an hour.
And that was through a dream. That one was psychic dreaming.
Right. Most of these are through psychic dreaming. Not the election. No, that was just me being wide awake. 9/11. No, that was just me being wide awake. TWA crash. Yes. Oklahoma City crash. Concorde. Yes. Columbia crash. One of them is the Russian submarine Kursk sinking. I got every detail. Yes, that was a dream. The Japan quake and tsunami, part dream, part being awake. United Airlines Flight 232 crash, dream completely. And the Indonesia quake tsunami, part dream, part being awake. The United Airlines Flight 232 crash, which you'll see a photo of there, that's the most profound precog that I've ever had. I just want to take a moment to share this. It's different than any other psychic event that I've ever experienced. And to this day, I don't know what happened. I don't know how it worked. Basically, like so many of the plane crashes that I've witnessed, this is one that I saw very specifically. What happened is this United Airlines Flight 232 was under normal flight. Something happened and it just could not turn. Something happened to a rudder. I believe I was up in the air during the dream, as I am in most precog dreams that I have. I am in flight, kind of above it, looking, and every once in a while I come to ground and I do something. I can sometimes extend the energy that I have through this astral system. I can move objects. I can fly. I can move objects. And the very first time that I ever saved a plane or dreamed about a plane, I was less than 5. I was dreaming. There was a plane flying overhead. I was outside the house and a man I'll call the dream man stood beside me, and we looked at this plane. Remember, I'm just under 5 years old, so I'm paraphrasing what I would have sounded like. We both looked up at a plane flying overhead, and it was in trouble. And he said to me, "You can save that plane." And he handed me this silver cord, and he used it as a lasso, and he lassoed this plane, was, far above us. And then he took my hand, and we flew up into the air, and we flew up above the plane so that the silver cord was just stretched, and he was actually holding up the plane. And he said, "Now watch what I do, because this is what you're going to do from now on." And so I was just with him like I was an apprentice. And he flew us right to the airport. And he landed the plane by that silver cord. And then that's the last time I ever saw him.
Wow,
and
that's weird.
I just emulated him, and I've never had the silver cord. It's never been in my possession, to my knowledge.
Well, it sounds to me as though you're being offered a chance to somehow alter perhaps these events, and perhaps that's why you're being shown them.
I think so. I've done this without the silver cord. I've held up a lot of planes, literally lifted them up and kept them from crashing, but most of them not. Mm-hmm. Most of them, I've not interacted with them. And then there was another plane, now that you're bringing this to my memory. It's on my website. It's not here in these photos, but it's on my website. There was a plane that crashed, and there were some survivors, thank goodness. And I was watching it from a distance, maybe 500 yards or so. And there was a man that was standing next to me. And I looked at him and I realized he was the pilot. And he was very remorseful. And he said, oh my God, I killed all these people. What am I to do?" And I looked at him and I realized it was his ghost. The pilot was dead. I could see him dead in the cockpit. And I just said to him, "Well, why don't we go and see how many people we can save off of this plane?" So as a ghost, and I was whatever I am, we helped to escort quite a few people off of that plane. So back to UA Flight 232, the thing that was so unusual about it was...
Yes.
Was that after the plane crashed, it crashed in a cornfield. Part of my precog was that the plane landed in a cornfield. Mm-hmm. And it also, in my precog, I say quite specifically that I flew over the cornfield, like I say in the astral. I'm a really good flyer. And I flew over this crash site, and I saw the whole thing. I'm not going to go into how gory it was, but it was a bad one. The plane just rolled over and over and over, and pieces of the plane and bodies were just everywhere, all over the place. But some of the survivors ended up in the cornfield, and the corn was higher than people. And I flew over the cornfield, and I saw people, and I said, "Follow my voice. I'll lead you out of the cornfield. I'll lead you to safety." And that's what I did. I also did other things there, and it's all on my website. Later on, I heard some survivors giving news reports. And I also later on, it's in a book where a survivor, more than one, says that the way that they got out of the cornfield, where they were very disoriented, was that they heard a voice above them in the cornfield saying, "Follow me, I'll get you out." I swear that survivor used the exact same words that I had written down in the precog that I had made public. How did that person hear my voice? Person thought I was an angel. Mm-hmm. I'm no angel. I'm just a person.
That sounds like bilocation to me. Is that an astral outer body experience, or
I don't know.
A bilocation where you were telling them to go through the cornfield though in the past before it happened?
No, that's the thing. That's the tricky thing.
Or was it during the time it was actually happening?
My precog is in a coexisting timeline. Mm-hmm. So the event as it's happening, I'm not in my dominant timeline. So I'm not bilocating.
Right.
Something else is going on. It's just a part of the unified field theory of psi, obviously, that I have not figured out. Or have I found anyone else who has had this experience? And by the way, I've never had it since. I mean, I can touch objects in these precogs. I can touch objects in the astral. I can move them. I can fly. I can breathe underwater. I can do all sorts of things. But this one, where I actually crossed into a coexisting timeline, that's what happened. I somehow literally crossed into it in such a way that this person, more than one person, could literally hear me word for word. There were also children that I saved on that plane because I was able to tell people there's a child here, there's a child there alive, and they went in and saved these children. Mm-hmm. That's typical. But hearing my voice. Now, I've been seen before, but never my voice. I've been seen like a ghost, but never my voice. Anyway.
Wow, that's pretty intense. Yeah.
Right. And then, the Japan quake tsunami, the Indonesia quake tsunami, there's no way I was stopping that. I didn't know it was going to happen in Japan, and I didn't know it was going to happen in Indonesia. I just knew the world-changing event was going to happen. That's about it. I mean, it's still a wonder to me. I still am learning something every day. I just wish I could find more people who had the same type of precogs that I did, so that I could reformulate that dream team and save lives at the same time, learning a lot more about the function of it.
We must be having this ability for some purpose. It can't just be a nice bit of entertainment. And it's certainly not a nice bit of entertainment anyway to see death and destruction. I mean, it's not something you really want to dream about, is it?
Let me tell you something, Karen. Right now, from my point of view, from my experiences, I think that this is just the way we are. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure there's any purpose beyond that. Some of us, millions of us, millions, not just me, millions have this ability. And that because the subject matter itself is intentionally made fun of, is not presented on the news as anything but to make fun of, not to be taken seriously. I don't think that our true potential as humans is being recognized or sought after, and that maybe someday we can, maybe through this podcast as it evolves, we can help to pull together the millions of people who do have this ability consciously, because our brain is the interface to the core matrix. That is the way it is. So this is a natural way of communicating that we have, and we should be able to use it. It cuts across everything, it doesn't matter what gender you are. It doesn't matter what your skin color is. It doesn't matter what religion you follow. None of that matters. We're all the same.
You were just reminding me of one of my own stories that I'd kind of forgotten about, actually. Now, I've always had sort of premonitions and precognitions and dreams, just often just even related to my everyday life, like this person will telephone me, or this person's sick, or this person's going to suddenly appear, just basic everyday stuff that it's not really here or there. But then I remember on my channel, The Pursuit of Happiness, I'm documented. It's there in video. I started to become aware that something bad was about to happen, some kind of terror attack, and I could feel it. It was coming. And funnily enough, I was living in Barcelona at the time, and I started to really get this feeling that I needed to do something about it and that it was going to happen. Now, again, I don't know if I was doing some kind of localized timeline editing, but I got everyone on my channel to do this protection manifestation, and we spoke that whoever was going to try to do this terror attack, we were setting our intention that it would literally blow up in their faces. You know, that kind of idea where there would be a gremlin and whatever they were trying to do would backfire, and, you know, it would basically come back on them. So we did this thing. At that time, I didn't know where it was going to happen or what it was.
Do you recall about the time period that this was happening?
Well, this was when there was the terror attack in Barcelona. I don't know if people remember, just a couple of years ago, we had a terror attack in the summer here in Barcelona on the Rambla, which is a major tourist destination. People drove in with a van, killed a load of people. But then the police found out that the people behind the attack had planned to blow up. This is what I was saying, that they were going to attempt to blow up. I thought maybe a cathedral or something of importance, a big building. And they actually, what happened was they were caught because the stuff they had blew up in their faces. They actually did blow themselves up, and they got arrested. So they were going to do something a lot worse, which was perhaps blow up the cathedral here, which is the Gaudi Cathedral, which is very famous. And that's the feeling I had, that that's what was planned. And in the end, what actually happened was they killed a few people on the Rambla by ramming into them with a van, and nothing exploded. And I do believe that it was because on my channel, a group of us, we all came together. We knew something bad was about to happen, and we decided that we were going to stop it by doing a manifestation where we were going to change the energy, and it was going to backfire on whoever was doing it. And this is literally what happened. So yeah, I myself have also seen a terror attack, and I feel like I saw it because I was meant to take an action with another group of like-minded people, and we were all going to focus on changing this reality. And what we did was, use like a mirror, the image of a mirror that would reflect the energy back to the perpetrator, so it wouldn't harm innocents. We just wanted to protect innocent lives. So that's how we visualized it. And from the police records, that seems to be exactly what happened to the terrorists, that it blew up. Their explosives blew up the house they were in.
Yeah, you were doing a natural reality shift manifestation, which is something that I discovered is the mechanism, but is absolutely natural to a human's ability to alter localized events. These are not timeline edits. It's something else. And so what you're describing is very, very, very possible. Also, the premonition that you had had to be you interfacing with streaming data from a coexisting timeline. So you got this information. This is where the premonition comes from.
And it wasn't a psychic dream. It was a premonition. I started to get this feeling, like I just knew. It just kept coming into my mind. I was just being told that there was something bad about to happen, a terrorist attack.
Right. My friend and webmaster, Sherry, who you know well, she reminded me in lieu of what you're talking about here, through the Dream Team on my ID list, we actually also did some real-time life-saving, just exactly what you're talking about. So I can confirm it. One was a runaway train where another of my researchers is the one who actually had the dream about a runaway train. I only had a very short while to do some research. Then that runaway train actually happened in real time. It was on TV, and I was able to very quickly, using my own abilities, get my team to create a situation where the train was stopped before it was able to crash off the tracks and kill loads and loads of people. So we did exactly what you just said, the way that you did it. We did it too, because it's natural for humans, if you understand the mechanism, which you obviously did without even, you just knew that you could do this, because it is part of it is part of nature. Another thing that we did was there was a JetBlue plane whose front landing gear tire had gone wonky sideways, and in real time we were able to hold that plane up so that it could land without crashing. even with the tire wonky sideways. This is on vid. And what's so interesting about it is we knew that we did it, and we weren't going to make a big deal, but there are photographs of this plane landing. Call it pareidolia, where the brain sort of makes you see images in something that may not be there, but the smoke and the sparks that were flying off, you could literally see the images of many, many people standing in a row underneath the plane holding it up.
Wow.
It's amazing. So I'm with you on that totally. And may I also say that your experiences, and I know that you've had many, many more than what you've just shared, millions and millions and millions of people have had the exact same type of experience.
Yeah.
And they're just not gathered. I'd love to be able to do that with you.
It's an untapped potential that needs to be tapped into. I think it's there for a reason. It could even be part of our development here and what human beings are turning into to have these abilities to become. It's having responsibility, being responsible, reaching a level perhaps where you're allowed to have these abilities or to know that they exist because you're responsible enough to use them correctly. And the more we develop ourselves personally, perhaps the more we will develop these abilities. And definitely we need to bring the people with these abilities together in one space. And we need to really explore. Yeah, we are doing it. We are on Facebook. Yeah, we are doing it to really explore this potential, though, because it's an amazing untapped talent that humans have, and most people sort of ignore it. People can be very good at pushing it away. The fact that they dreamt of their gran, passing over or something, and then they get a call that week that their nan, died or something, and they
very often they are ridiculed.
Yeah,
and I know. Listen. When I was a kid, even when I was an adult, I was ridiculed by the family that I was adopted into. They were very cruel to me. And I was sort of left on my own to pursue what I knew was a truth. And, but I just want to encourage everyone who's listening to this podcast, when you are having these psychic events, don't you dare let anybody tell you that it's abnormal or crazy or that you're something less than okay, because you're perfectly normal. And I want to normalize this. And I think, Karen, we have an opportunity here to bring millions upon millions of people together from all over the world to help this planet. Just the way we've done in the Amazon rainforest and Australia. And we're helping to do now with the coronavirus terribleness. and now the Operation Warriors of Light. I was perfecting these things through my work with, astral tagging, truth reveals, and reality shift manifestation with my research list for many, many years. But when I met you, and you had the idea that, hey, let's actually form groups and collect people who are just focused on doing that. I mean, I'd never really, except for my research list, which ended in 2019, I'd never done it that way before. So through you, and you're having that idea, because I want everyone to know you really brought that to me. You set up these groups so that I could just step in and we could run them together. And we have proven that whether you're hundreds or whether you're thousands, because we have both types of groups, it works. When you follow what I call science, PSIENCE, a word that I coined, where your psychic side and science come together, science, and you get it right. Where you're not trying to create things that you should not do and you should not have. When you're not working on the side of, this is what you want and so what? No, you can't do that. And when you're really fighting against true evil, when you bring together all of its energy, oh my goodness, we can do such wonderful good on this planet. So we should work on that.
Yeah,
and get suggestions from people.
Yeah, please comment with your suggestions in the comment section, guys. And what a wonderful, peaceful way to make a difference in the world as well, because it's a very non-aggressive stance. Like when I was doing the mirror protection manifestation, it was just a few of us, like a couple of hundred. It's just sending energy back on itself. So it's not like we're aggressing something. It's just like, well, if you're trying to send this to hurt innocent people, we were just sending that energy straight back to you and protecting the innocent from it reaching them. And really, that's a very non-aggressive self-defense art, I would say.
Right. Well, that's mirror thing that you're talking about is very ancient. And a lot of people who study paganism, magic of the light, not magic of the dark, do use the mirror as you've discussed it in their everyday life to keep protected, to ward off things. So it's a natural progression. Very natural. Now, throughout history, there have been a number of people who are inventors, scientists, artists, who are very well known, who are also were excelled at prophecy or precognition, premonition, psychic dreaming. And one of them, one of my favorites, Nikola Tesla.
Oh, yeah, one of my faves too.
Yeah. Nikola Tesla. So much of our modern day technology was invented by him. Nikola Tesla lived from 1856 to 1943. And he believed that he was guided by 10 angels. And he also believed that all of the energy in the cosmos sprang from light. He was also very stimulated to get there by the Bible saying, "Let there be light." He was very motivated by that phrase. He went beyond that phrase. But he believed that everything came from light. All matter came from light. Even darkness came from light. And everything that he invented, remote control and you name it, energy from our phones today that don't require wires, fiber optics, all of these things came from Nikola Tesla. He was called the man of light. But Tesla was wanting to create power that everybody could use for free.
Yeah. Oh, and the system won't like that.
That's right. And the reason why he ran into so much trouble was because the elite billionaires of the day wanted to make money off of energy. And so they didn't like the fact that he was into, hey, let's just give this to everybody.
Yeah.
So they plotted against him and they ruined him. And he wasn't a very good businessman either. And he was just an absolute genius. He said that when he needed to solve a problem, he would program his brain to dream the solution. He always was getting precognition, prophecy from his dreams, or just staring at the light. He would sit in his lab and create light. And he would sit in the middle of it, his Tesla coils and things. And he would get these images and psychic knowings. This is where all of his inventions came from. He got great sustenance from the light that he himself would create, or he would stare into the sun, well, in a way that he didn't go blind, but the sun was very inspirational for him. He understood that energy from the sun would come to earth and power it up. He also understood that there were ground waves and there was a grid system. He didn't know about geomagnetic storms at that time, but had he lived in today's life, he would have known. He would have called it that. He was so wonderful. So he is probably just about the greatest psychic dreamer of all time, because what he dreamed, he created. And they are fueling and running our world today, except for the fact that people are making too much money off of the energy that we're supposed to do. Another historical figure that was also very similar to Tesla was Leonardo da Vinci.
Another favorite of mine.
Da Vinci lived from 1452 to 1519, and he was an artist, he was a scientist, he was a scholar, and he was this great inventor. Like so many inventors from his time or even in modern time, you really have to appeal to the war machine.
Mm-hmm.
So in order for him to stay in the money, he was very clever. He created a lot of things that appealed to keeping countries safe from other countries. For example, he conceptually created the parachute,
mm-hmm.
the helicopter, an armored tank, concentrating solar power for energy, a basic calculator.
Wasn't it all for Cosmo de' Medici was like funding him? Wasn't it Cosmo de' Medici?
Yeah, right.
So he had to come up with things to make him happy.
That's correct. He also came up with the double hull for ships. Mm-hmm. Very important. A basic theory of plate tectonics. That's earthquakes. An odometer, so you would know the distance that you were traveling. Flying wings, which he never quite got going, but he conceived of them. He created a machine gun. Mm-hmm. And so much more. Then, of course, there was his art. He invented something called camera obscura. Someone else may have actually given him the seed for that, but he used camera obscura in a lot of his artwork. A lot of people don't know this, but his realism came from camera obscura. Anyway, a great genius, and he dreamed half of what he invented. The other half came from just the knowing, just being awake, psychic knowing. He just knew what was needed, how it would be, and these are the great minds of our history. Oh, there's one other thing that I wanted to mention about Tesla and flying saucers.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, Tesla invented he invented or wanted to invent, conceived of several types of flying vehicles. And one of these designs was a flying saucer. He has a patent on it. In 1911, he was working on it, and there's an article that was written about him talking about this flying saucer. Now, in later years, during the 1940s, there were the Germans, the Nazis, and they wanted to create something called the Haunebu. And the Haunebu was a flying saucer vehicle, which the Germans felt were going to help them win the war. They were always coming up with these technologies. Now, a lot of people in more modern times feel that, the Germans got this by engine extraterrestrial flying machines, UFOs, flying
by
craft.
Reverse engineering, yeah.
Right. But that's not how that happened at all. It happened because they had access to the patents of Nikola Tesla.
Because some people thought it had something to do with the Vril Society women who were somehow channeling information about spacecrafts.
Nope. They got it from Nikola Tesla.
Right.
And, of course, Nikola Tesla got it as far as he's concerned. It was available information from the angels. Mm-hmm. He got it from angels. Were the angels ETs? I don't know. There was a time that Tesla picked up these unusual communications from what he felt was outer space. He felt that he was receiving patterned communications from extraterrestrials. So he was totally convinced that ET were real, and he was right. Whether what he was picking up was coming from extraterrestrial or perhaps something being put out by Marconi, to this day, we do not know. But you can see in the picture here that this is Tesla's flying saucer invention that he talked about in 1911, in which there's a patent. And I didn't put up a photo of the Haunebu, but anyone can look it up online, you'll see that it looks almost exactly like that. Almost exactly to the T, like this 1911 flying saucer from Tesla. So I just want to let everybody know that the German Honeybu comes from Tesla and not from reverse engineering directly an ET. But the Germans, the Nazis, were into believing that all of that did exist, and they were on a hunt for this material. So I don't want to say that that didn't exist, that they were looking for it, but this one came from Tesla. Mm-hmm. Finally got that out to the world. Okay. Now, I know that a favorite of yours, Karen, is Edgar Cayce. Mm-hmm. And Edgar Cayce lived from 1877 to 1945. Why don't you take it from there?
Well, Edgar Cayce, he's really, best known for his numerous, hundreds of documented psychic readings that are actually free for the public to go and look if they go to the Edgar Cayce Foundation in the USA, or you can download them online if you pay a small fee. But he used to put himself into a trance state. He used to fold his arms across him and go into a trance. But he'd always been psychic. So even since he was a young boy, he was known for being psychic and having psychic visions and premonitions. He was a very religious man. And when he was in this dream state, trance state, he could just give information that he would download. He believed he was in contact with creation, universal knowledge of space and time. And
right, exactly.
And he was able to be very, very specific with treating disorders. Again, he was a very religious, spiritual man. But he fascinates me because at the time as well, the sort of era he was out, it was a very interesting time for humanity, the end of the 1800s. There was a lot of this kind of new age stuff and enlightenment stuff going on. But he was like the real deal. That's why he interested me at that time. I'm sure there was a lot of charlatans around as well in those days.
Spiritualism was pretty popular, and there were a lot of hoaxers going on. But there were some legit guys, and Cayce was one of them.
Yeah. And he gave predictions about ancient history as well, like the Atlantis, Egypt. Many people know he thought that we were going to find the Hall of Records, I believe, under the Sphinx. He was saying, or somewhere near the Sphinx. He wrote a lot of books on these topics.
Right. Because I did a lot of research into this too. Anybody who can go into a dream state and help to heal people interests me a lot. I did find out that he did 14,306 readings in the dream state.
Wow.
Whether somebody was there with him or he did it remotely. And I know that he worked with his secretary and his wife to get this done.
Yeah, they documented everything very professionally.
Right, it was wonderful.
Yeah.
But I also know that there are some predictions of his that have gotten a lot of attention, dealing with the ancient mysteries and future events. And Atlantis, that Hall of Records and all that. But to date, none of these predictions of his, these particular ones, have manifested yet. But he did predict the 1929 crash in the States and that there was going to be a new world war. And that did come to pass. So thousands of his health readings, absolutely spot on. But these other predictions, not yet so. But because he was so good at his other work, I'm giving him I'm open-minded that these predictions of his may come to pass. Certainly, I think that there was a place that fits the description of Atlantis. Certainly, I know there's a Hall of Records. If they're under the Sphinx, I believe that's very possible. I've done some psychic work myself, and there's something going on there. So I think we have to just wait, keep an open mind. I think there's a good chance that what this man predicted may come to fruition in some form.
And can I just make a point here, actually linking this back into your timeline edit discoveries? Perhaps if you were making predictions in the past and you weren't able to understand that there might be some timeline edits between now and that future thing manifesting, could that affect the outcome of a prophecy. You might see something, but then it might change slightly. If we go through some major timeline edits, that might actually change the future. Or if you were prophesizing, would you see the edited timeline in the future and prophesize that? Do you see what I'm saying?
I do. And I'm very glad that you brought that up. That's very good thinking. This is a topic that I've explored tremendously. And the question of, if somebody sees accurately an event that happens in a coexisting timeline but doesn't make it into the current edited timeline, are they having a precog? And the answer is no. There's a special gift where someone is able to discern, their brain is able to discern if something that they are experiencing is from another coexisting timeline, even if they don't even realize that that's what it is. If something is actually going to be happening in whatever dominant timeline we happen to be in. I'm very critical. In fact, I wrote a manifesto for how to determine what is a real prophecy, what is a real precog, what is a real premonition, and a knowing, because there's so many hoaxers out there. So now, let's say we have someone and we know is just hoaxing, wants to make it look like they're a prophet or a seer or a really good psychic. There's most of the public people out there today making that claim are not what they claim to be. And what they do is they take a whole bunch of generic stuff, they throw it against the wall, and they just hope that something's going to stick and the public won't notice 99% of what they said is just never happened. So I'm very, very critical of it. For example, if you're going to say, I feel that a plane is going to crash. Well, folks, let's face it, planes crash all the time. Multiple planes crash every year. Even in my own precogs of plane crashes, I'm specific. I don't come out and say, just a plane's going to crash. Yeah. Unless I'm going to say that plane's going to crash in 2 minutes. Actually, that's happened to me where I said, there's a plane going to crash, it's going to be this, and then an hour later that plane crashed. That is precog. But just somebody saying that a plane's going to crash, or there's going to be a war in the Middle East, or
a hurricane,
or there's going to be a hurricane, or there's going to be
bad weather.
There's going to be a big earthquake. There's always one.
There's always one somewhere, right?
So these are not truth tellers. These are not genuine, authentic precognition. These are not prophets. These are not seers. Throw them out of your system. Now, I'm just talking about those people who want to make a living of it, want to make themselves famous about it, want to make claims about it so that they can make money or get attention or the spotlight. Now, it's different when we go into the private sector. It is very possible for someone to just have a dream or a premonition that a plane's going to crash. They're not trying to earn money from that. They're not trying to go public. They may very well authentically be picking something up. But since what we're dealing with here, what we're talking about is our public people making public claims. Most people who make these claims are frauds. And I try to teach people to follow my criteria, which is there has to be something specific, which separates out something like a plane's going to crash. Like, for example, a lot of the plane crashes that I've published about before they happen, I would see the plane is a certain color, the terrain is a certain way. There's certain specifics that turn out to be true. And another thing is, you got to be brave. You got to be brave if you have what you feel very strongly about is a precog of an event, and you think that by putting it out there is going to save lives, be brave. Put it out there. The worst that can happen is not going to happen. Well, isn't that a good thing? Isn't that a good thing?
Sometimes it's good to be wrong. Like, if you've actually managed to avert it, for people to say, oh, well, that never happened. And you can just smile and think,
right. But going back to your original observation and question, if someone trying to make a name for themselves, calling themselves a seer, a prophet, and all that, a psychic, if they continually get things wrong, it's not because they just misread a coexisting timeline. It's because they don't have the gift.
Mm-hmm.
And basically ignore what they're saying.
Yeah.
Do not listen to them. I don't care how famous they are. I don't care how many people they've persuaded that there's some big poobah. They're not. They are not. So go for my criteria. And now, speaking of, I want to mention another well-known public figure who had at least one public prediction, and that's the great writer Mark Twain, whose real name was Samuel Clemens. He lived from 1835 to 1910. Mm-hmm. He wrote the books The Adventures of Tom Sawyer and The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn and lots of other things. Anyway, Twain was born at the time that Halley's comet was passing by our planet. It makes that visit about every 75 years. It's made this visit every 75 years throughout history, going back a long time. And he predicted that he would die when Halley's comet came back again. And that's exactly what happened. So Mark Twain goes down as someone who was an accurate predictor. And you got to believe that because he was able to do that, a lot of his work came from psychic knowing.
Now, do you think there's a reason why a lot of these people we're talking about now are actually men? Do you think it's just that maybe women back in the day weren't able to publicize or get to an audience and let them know that they were having these visions? Because in my personal experience, a lot of the females I have are much more in tune with their dream state or talking about their psychic side, whereas guys that I know tend not to talk about those things so much. So I'm just wondering what's the reason maybe that there's so many throughout history male precogs?
Well, okay. You're absolutely 100% correct that the reason why we don't hear about very many females from history who are legitimate prophets, seers, psychics is because they were oppressed.
They were burned as witches, perhaps, before then.
They were burned as witches, to say the least.
They dare not make any...
They were burned as witches. They didn't have the right to voice their opinions.
Yeah, to publish
Men
information.
were ruled a roost, except for a very few female-dominated societies, the Amazon women and so forth. Women have been subjected to silence. We don't want to hear from you, say the men. We're going to rule things, and we don't care about what you think or what you feel. And when a rare woman would speak to her husband or to someone about a dream she had that came true, she was risking her life. She was risking her life as perhaps a heretic, being influenced by the devil or a demon. It was bad.
Yeah.
Now, the truth of the matter is, even though male and female brains are a little bit different, each has the same interfacing with the core matrix.
Yeah.
They have the same access. Women have been fighting for so long to be heard. They're not superior to men when it comes to precogs, and men are not superior to women. They're actually equal in their abilities, but in today's world where men are being taught that their feely touchy side is no good, and then they put psychic abilities into that basket, that's not good. Men would be stronger, more powerful, better warriors, better everything if they were to embrace their psychic side and embrace the psychic side of women as well, but the legit ones, not frou-frou, not hoaxers, not fluffy stuff, the real thing. Because every single leader from the dawn of time has depended on a psychic to help guide them. Shamans, medicine men, medicine women. So the smartest people on the face of the earth understood and respected male and female psychics. And the best ones were the ones who understood what the heck they were talking about. I mean, lots of people have premonitions, they have psychic dreams, they have psychic knowings, but they don't understand it. They just don't understand it for one reason or another. For example, let's take one of the most famous claimed prophets today called Nostradamus. Well, he doesn't pass the smell test as either a prophet or a seer. He was very popular back in the day, hundreds of years ago, because he knew how to appeal to the public. He knew how to earn a living. He was what people thought a prophet or a seer should be. Spoke in metaphors, very vague, nothing really solid. And people thought that mystery, because he was an astrologer, he was, like I said, a scholar, he traveled, he was very knowledgeable. I'm sure he was a very smart guy, but he did not write in clear-cut language that would help anybody understand in his own time.
Yeah, I've always found his stuff so obscure. It's just so obscure. I couldn't, right. I don't really follow his stuff because I tried to read it before and there's all these interpretations that need to be made. And
that's right.
It's too obscure. Yeah.
People, well, first of all, when he's being translated into different languages, and then he's being translated by people, including, there are people who have spent their adult life becoming experts in Nostradamus, and they very, very much believe that, he's the big guns of prophecy. He's not. He is not a prophet for today. Now, he wrote what? He wrote 942 what are called quatrains.
Quatrains, that's right.
Right? And of those 942, if you're just going to take them back to the day, one or two of them turned out to be pretty much resembling what was going on for the day. So you can say, hey, 2 hits. But 2 hits out of 942 do not make a prophet. He had some psychic moments. But in modern times, researchers who've looked into him now understand that the majority of his material was inspired by works and myths and biblical stories of his day, things that came before him. He used them. He was a clever guy. He knew how to market. Mm-hmm. And remember, this isn't the day of that wasn't the day of social media or communications. So he was a really big deal because he wrote books. And those books have never been out of print. But he did not forecast or foretell anything that's happening in modern times. But there are people who like to sort of manipulate his words to make it seem like that's what's happening. My criteria is if it's going to be actionable intel, if anything psychic is going to be actionable intel, it better make sense. And if the person who's having that information come out doesn't understand it, they better have somebody right next to them who can interpret it properly immediately at the time.
Yeah, because
that doesn't describe.
I can imagine though, like if you were, say, 400, 500 years in the past and you were trying to explain something that you'd seen very much in the future that you might not quite even have the words for yet, because it might be, you're living in the medieval era and you're seeing a computer or a car as an example. I can imagine it might be difficult to come up with the words to explain.
Right, but it can still be explained. It doesn't have to be a metaphor or a mystery thing. Okay, if you're back in his day, okay, and let's say you see a car driving on a road, no horses.
Yeah.
Okay. You do have the language, especially someone as smart as him. You would have the language to draw it, to describe it, saying he saw a box with people inside and it was moving along a road that wasn't dirt, that seemed very solid, and there were no horses in sight.
Yeah.
How hard is that?
Yeah. True.
So just write what you see.
Yeah.
but he didn't do that.
Mm-mm.
I'm saying, so, it's possible to do, and he didn't do it. And that as somebody who does do accurate precogs and also has that precogs that are very, I see literally.
Yeah, specific.
I don't
and
see
literal.
I don't see in metaphors. Some do, but they need to know how to interpret that.
Mm-hmm.
But he doesn't pass the precog, prophecy, or premonition, or psychic test, except for 2 possibly out of 942. I'm sorry for those of you who are real big fans of Nostradamus. I'm sorry, but for me, it's about truth. It's about saving lives. And I just have to call it like I see it.
Yeah, and who's got time to sit around all day trying to figure out what a few lines of something mean and try to fit it to something in the timeline? I mean, what's really the point of that if it's not going to change anything or help anyone? Just sitting there.
I'll tell you what the point is. There is a point. There is a reason why people gravitate to it. We live in such uncertain times, and the earth has always been fragile and wrought with dangerous things. So, it's part of the reason why you're so interested in tarot and astrology, because we want to have some sort of an inkling of how to protect ourselves, some order that we can form. And when you see somebody like Nostradamus, who continues to be so popular, you're hoping that he has a bit of wisdom, a bit of knowledge that's going to help us make sense in a senseless world. That's why people, look, even today, the research into Nostradamus is ongoing. And I am open-minded and willing to change my mind if somebody can prove to me that he actually literally was able to predict modern day future events. I don't mean throwing it against the walls, manipulating what he's saying. I'm open, but I understand, and I know you do too, understand why people gravitate toward the paranormal, the supernatural, the psychic arts.
But I guess my point is I don't understand why people need to go into things that are so obscure that you have to spend so much time decoding it, where you can just grab your tarot cards and get a quick, clear answer. Well, right there and then, without having to spend years of research going over quatrains and trying to.
Different people are attracted to different things, which is good. And while some people may be attracted to tarot cards, other people, where they can access for themselves. And a lot of tarot cards are not good to use. I just want to throw that in there. Some are good, some are not good. But it really depends. A tarot card is like, I used to teach it, actually, a long time ago. I taught tarot cards. I taught them as each card represents a still frame in a movie. And with that still frames comes a whole history of knowledge. And if you're genuinely psychic and you know the pattern that you've probably thrown thousands of times, you'll be able to read the person in front of you, or if there's no person in front of you, the situation, the locale. It can be very, very helpful. For other people, not so much.
Yeah.
So different people.
Or they can come and follow you, Starfire, on Facebook and get some genuine predictions that'll be useful and actually of the moment.
I hope so. I would love it, as I said, if we could get that dream team going again. And yes, I think it would be good if people just at least paid a little bit of attention to the things that I say. It could be helpful.
I think so.
And the things that you say too.
Yes, I'm not. I don't see myself as a very seasoned psychic. My abilities, they seem to be so random, and they just come and go. And I guess
I find you very intuitive, Karen.
Yeah, I
find you very intuitive, and I think there's a lot to you.
It's like I knew also, like you say about Trump. I have to also have a disclaimer here. Like, I never really liked Donald Trump. I was never a big fan of his. I've liked people a lot more, but I just intuitively felt that when he was elected, something good had really happened and some big change had occurred that was a relief. and that I do feel he is an integral part of us going into a better future. And that's definitely on an intuitive sensory perception on the inside of myself, that I feel it with every fiber of my body.
Right. Well, that's something important that I discovered about you. And it's also a reason why I wanted to work with you, is because you do have a really excellent view of what is right, what is wrong, what is real, what is unreal. You have that ability. And I got to tell you, that's rare.
Well, I like to learn too. I don't mind to admit when I'm wrong. I'm always happy if I'm wrong for someone to come along and show me the evidence. All I want is the truth. That's really all I care about. I'm not interested in being
exactly
right.
The same way.
I don't care about to be right. I'd rather be wrong and no truth than sit there pretending to be right about something.
Right. I mean, if I'm wrong about something, I'll immediately come out and say, hey, I just got schooled. I was wrong. I thought about it. I learned more about it. And I'm correcting what I said. I'm always, because it is about the truth. That's what we're about on this podcast.
Yes, always trying to bring it back to that. And before we get to the end of this podcast, I wonder if you could go into a few details about this field theory of psi. The
unified field theory of psi?
Yeah, the unified field theory of psi that sort of ties it all together behind the scenes.
Well, very briefly, when I discovered the core matrix, time shifts, coexisting timelines, and everything that it's related to, I wasn't looking for that because I didn't know that it existed. I was actually searching for the foundation science that would explain everything psychic, paranormal, and supernatural.
Mm-hmm.
I knew it because I was an experiencer. I knew it because I had researched it and talked to lots of other people who were having the exact same things happen to them. So I knew that it was real. Yet no scientist was pursuing it. Not really. Not the way
no money
it
in
should
it.
be.
There's no money in it for them. There's no research grant for that.
And those few scientists that have pursued it, they totally missed the boat. I've never come across a scientist who actually understood the paranormal, who understood how telepathy works.
Yeah, well,
or how precognition.
Close that part themselves off. A lot of scientists that I know are actually materialists. I'm talking about like biologists and more kind of that kind of science.
Well,
not so much.
There are a few scientists who specialize in the paranormal, and I'm just saying, I'm not naming names. I'm just saying that they don't get it. They missed the boat,
mm-hmm.
and I'm going to say also, without naming names, 90% of them haven't had a psychic experience in their entire life. And of those who have, it's maybe one or two. In other words, they have no personal experience to go by. And when I discovered the core matrix and time shifts, that was the key that actually opened up the scientific door to the mechanism that the psychic world worked. It's as I described, our brains are the interface to this core matrix. And all of the data and all of the information that the core matrix uses to form every single coexisting timeline, we have access to. And this is where our dreams come from. This is where our psychic abilities, because we're just downloading this information, which may not exist yet in our dominant coexisting timeline, but it will. It will. That's how all of a sudden two brilliant people can invent the exact same thing at almost the exact same time.
Yeah, or whenever you have an idea, you can bet if you've had an idea and you didn't act upon it, someone's having the same idea as you and they will act upon it, and then you'll see the thing. I've invented many things before in my mind, and just like a year later or 6 months later, I've seen that exact thing that I was thinking about appear in the shops.
Right.
Just random stuff, totally random
right.
stuff.
We could do a whole show on inventions and where they came from.
Oh my God. You know? I have so many of them in my mind. I'm inventing stuff all the time, but I'm not an engineer and I don't create things so much. I don't have factories. So a lot of the ideas I have, like I could never really
I totally believe it. I totally believe it. So all of our information comes from this brain core matrix interface, all of it.
Yeah.
Everything. And once I made this discovery, the unified field theory of psi, PSI, there wasn't anything in the paranormal field or with psychic or with dreams or precognition, prophecy, premonition that I didn't understand the mechanism on, including reality shift manifestation work and astral tagging, truth reveals, and more of it I haven't even introduced to the public yet.
Mm-hmm.
All of these things are based on science that is natural to human beings. Period. That's it.
And do you think that there's actually been a concerted effort to sort of shut that part of humanity down?
Yes.
And keep us from accessing it, make us afraid of it almost?
Yes. That's why the propaganda media makes fun of it.
Mm-hmm.
That's why ridicule is taught about it, while privately, these same people who are ridiculing it, the elites, are utilizing psychics to make their fortunes.
Yes.
Every president has had them. Every world leader has them, or has them all the way, like I said, back through history.
Mm-hmm.
The reason why certain leaders don't want their people to be educated, to read, write, know real history, or to cancel history that they don't like, is because they want to keep people dumbed down so that they can trick them, so that their power remains prominent. And the psychic world is very threatening to them because they can't stop a really good psychic from seeing everything they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
Their secrets can come out. So they get ahead of the problem, which they're really good at. Ridicule genuine psychics. I mean, there's so many fake and hoaxer psychics that it's not difficult to ridicule them.
Yeah.
The problem of hoaxing, of course, which I go off about all the time. So they don't want people to know about real psychic, real science behind it.
No, they will always wheel out the worst when they want to discredit psychics and precognition and psychic dreams. For some reason, they never talk about Edgar Cayce or Da Vinci. They'll always wheel out some 2-bit circus wannabe dude who's like ripping people off doing psychic reading. They'll just wheel out the worst
without
possible.
saying names.
Yeah,
right.
Wheel him out, put him on,
right.
stooge.
That's right. And what I do when I put out my precogs, like I said, it's a brave thing. I go, okay, if I'm right, I'm right. I'm wrong, I'm wrong. So I put them out to the public, and they're specific. And then, as you'll see on my website, I investigate them. Mm-hmm. I match things up. I add documentation so that nobody who's honest can come up and say, that never happened. No, it's documented. So it's possible. It can be done. And if we can, the more people who are real psychics, who can come out to the public safely, the greater it will be that we'll be able to sort of push aside and shelve these fakers. Mm-hmm. A lot of them who use either the New Age, spiritualism, even the UFO field, make a name for themselves when they don't deserve it.
So many fakers, and it just muddies the water for everyone.
It makes it really hard for the truth to come out. It makes it very hard for real psychics. And millions and millions and millions of people, as I said, have this ability.
Yep.
And they're afraid to even mention it to their families and friends. I want to break that stigma. I want to break that stigma. I want to create a society where all of our brain is cherished, and not just the parts that people think they can make money off of.
Yeah, that's why it's so nice for people to connect to like-minded people and to come over to the Facebook groups and belong to a nice tribe of people, because I don't know, I feel like we can all encourage each other and support each other and give validation for each other's experiences so we don't feel like alone with what we're going through, because it is difficult when you face ridicule, but to you it's a real part of your existence. But if you don't have someone to share it with, it can get a bit lonely, or you might doubt yourself.
Right. And I can always tell when someone is in ridicule mode, because the first thing they go after is my name. My name seems to delight them. Like somehow I'm some flower child with no brains. Sorry, kids. That boat has sailed, and ridiculing my name just went out of favor when I started to prove I was the real deal. So, and by the way, my name, Starfire, is just a nickname. My name is Astrid Tor. I made that very well known when I was talking with Whitley Strieber way back in 2006. Don't make fun of people because of how they look, what their name is. Look at them for, are they living in truth? Are they trying to find truth? Are they brainwashed? What do they contribute? Not what their skin color is, what country they're from, what sex or gender they align with, what religion they're part of. Please, people.
It's really the lowest denominator.
Right. Well, your family, I know you've got some scientists in your family, but you're a very special person. How was it when you tried to bring out your intuitiveness to them? What was the reception?
Well, my dad, he didn't used to be open to it. And then he got a bit more open to it. And as I got older, he started to confide in me as we got closer, as he got older. He started to tell me that he had seen ghosts and had psychic dreams and premonitions when he was a lad, and yet he'd switched it all off and didn't really talk about it. And then as we got older, he said that he'd had visions of like driving a car. He'd looked in his mirror and he'd seen his dad, who was dead, go like this to him, stop in the mirror, and at that he just screeched the brake on, and then another car went whizzing across and he stopped himself from having an awful crash that he thinks he would have been really injured in. And he didn't reveal those things to me till later on in life. And my mother was very psychically gifted, but for some reason she refused.
It's genetic for you.
To accept it. She refuses to accept it. She's switching it off. She's completely denying that part of herself exists because the scientist, rational part of her brain doesn't want to accept it, because if she accepts it, then she has to accept the spiritual or the divine aspect of life, which she's just not willing to do as a staunch atheist.
Right. So, and a lot of people also fear the paranormal. They fear what it is. They fear the experience. And if they try to pretend that it's not even there, then they can like shut off the fear until they really encounter it.
Yeah, and I think if people have some spiritual belief, it's easier for them to accept it than people who are atheists, scientists, rationalists, who only believe in the material world, like a Darwinism, kind of a Darwinistic model of life. And for them, I think, like my brother, who's a really materialistic scientist who believes absolutely in nothing spiritual at all, he really doesn't believe in intuition or psychic. He'll say it's a coincidence, or and it's just because he doesn't want to be open to that aspect of reality. Whereas actually his wife, my sister-in-law, she's much more open to those things. But then she grew up in a religious household, a Catholic, Greek, Orthodox household. So her mind was open more to the spiritual side of life growing up, whereas my brother was brought up by an atheist woman who denied anything spiritual, even though she had huge psychic gifts and would often have premonition dreams. My mum used to dream of winning horses before the horse races.
Right.
She'd dream of the winner.
Well, first of all, it seems that you have a genetic thing going on there for yourself. And secondly, please remember, I'm a scientist. And so I understand exactly what you're saying. And there's also a very big behind the scenes push for people in the scientific community to divest themselves of anything spiritual or psychic, because it's all about grants, positioning, money, and that doesn't get them there. So, but there are scientists like myself who are also experiencers and pioneers in the system who know better. So I'm glad that at least you weren't turned off the way your mom is, and that your dad was able in his later years to tell you that he did have these paranormal ghost experiences, and probably made you very happy to hear it.
Yeah, actually, another psychic lady, she just met me and she said to me that my dad actually was a medium, but he didn't access that part of himself. Now, again, I don't know if that's true, but I've been told that we have the ability to be a medium, but we choose not to do it.
Wow.
Another lady told me that. Whether that's true or not, I don't know. But my dad certainly had a lot of encounters with ghosts.
Well, Karen, what you've just explained about your own family is what so many people in the world experience, where they have these gifts and then they talk to their family about it and they're turned off. They're just turned off immediately, not knowing that their very own parents or sisters or brothers are also having very similar experiences and are refusing. So they're willing to shut you down because of their fear.
Yes.
And so hopefully people will come out of their fear. You don't have to overwhelm people with your experiences. I mean, use good judgment, but look for people, as you said, look for people who have the same experiences and feel good about yourself.
Yeah, because it's fine if people don't want to have that type of experience as part of their reality. I mean, that's their right too. It's not like I want to enforce people into my world and demand that they, accept psychic phenomena. I mean, again, that's your choice, isn't it?
Well, it's their choice. It doesn't change the fact that it's real.
No, it doesn't change reality.
But it is their choice. And I leave them to it. I just live it. I can't help it. There's nothing I can do about it. So there it is.
Wow. So Starfire, we're getting to the end of the podcast. So I just want to really thank you for all of your knowledge and the wealth of information that you've shared with us tonight. And thanks to all the listeners for tuning in and coming on this wonderful journey with us.
And thank you, Karen. I so enjoyed talking with you, the podcast, the groups, and the wonderful future that I know we're going to have helping a whole lot of people in this world.
Yes, and thank you so much, Starfire, for this amazing chat. And I will see everybody on the next episode. Thanks, guys. Bye.
Bye now.
Thank you for sharing your time with us. We hope you enjoyed this remarkable journey into the Time Chronicles, changing the way you view reality.